Sheila here with Sirius Dallas Moon. And I want to. Um, I'm gonna unbox Angelica oil with you. I'm just going to cover the front camera of the phone. Um, Still Mars Hour, and literally we were talking about the topic of millennials fighting for so long for people, for Gen Zers to be able to say unalive themselves without that being um, subjected to a lot of things, let's say. And no, it was not only 10 minutes. Was it only 10 minutes? Yes, it was. Okay. And Angelica oil has arrived. I was wondering what's the issue with Angelica oil, and it arrived just on the Moon Lilith conjunction with Mars square Jupiter. Um, so, Angelica oil is a symbol of basically one. Basically, it's about a woman that her loved one needed to go, and they promised to return within several years. They didn't return, and so she thought, well, maybe they have found another lover or something like that. So she said she's going to find a lover and leave, and then the person returns. And she wants to kill herself, and so basically she consumes Angelica oil, and or she consumes Angelica trying to kill herself, but actually finds a reason to live. Is an all this to do with the fifth vital sign. And this is where cultures and rituals that used blood sacrifice were basically a form of degradation of the feminine, because the fifth vital sign, blood, was meant to nourish the soil and to prevent war. Um, so we're going to do a little ritual here as I unbox this, um, because I cannot count the time in my life, in life with my loved ones, that I was not in relationships because I did not want that if I will be able to die, to leave someone. And I was recovering from basically violations of my sexual boundaries while having to withstand those things again, which indeed doesn't make a person want to live. The only thing that could make me want, how should I say that? There was a time where I said I want to live. Um, and I understood that to be able to live ritual abuse, occultistic rape, and all of these things, they must be stopped because whenever I can take the money that was meant for food and buy for the oils that are supposed to purge both the physical symptoms and um, but those things they need to be they need to cease so that life can sustain. Do I know how? More than I tried 3.5 decades in not even having a name for things? I don't know. Um, oh, that smell is good. It's a strong scent. Um, Basically, when I think about it, a lot of us were fighting for actually a decent death. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. To not be assassinated because we spoke the truth, but to actually have death with dignity, without sacrificing speaking the truth. So, um, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to infuse that oil a little bit. Okay, beginning with the oils. There is the one with the avocado. Um, but I'm also going to have 1 drop, two, okay. Um, and I'm just going to, normally we dilute it, which is important. And I am going to dilute it, but when we make meditations for people who are aromatherapists, then we do use it um, uh, only 1 drop, only one time undiluted, and then if we do, let's say, meditation with the same oil again, oh, powerful, strong. I understand why I needed this. Not verbally, but pre-verbally. There was a delay. It was missing. Then I found it in another company, and I ordered it. It's just amazing. I just needed this oil. It's even. It really gives the sense of a person has been going through so much, and they're like, oh, they're having a little happy moment, and they're like, not sure if it has a continuation. Then they're like, okay, then maybe this is death. And And it's like, well, that's okay. um, it's just that people, the transition to this world should not be, um, there's no reason for the transition to this world to be of suffering, and the transition from this world to be of suffering. The And that's the thing that sustains life. I needed to see that, but innately I knew that. And then when I see that, I'm like, oh, the younger ones are practicing the things that would make them into the Epsteins and Detrus and Demings and all the things that they're supposedly trying to take down. And I don't judge them for what they practice, but I also don't see how, let's say, my life can continue. Um, Now, here is something terrible when, if I think about the last several years and I was like, Gen Zers have a word for unaliving themselves, the generation after already unalived themselves. There's, how should I say that? At first, it's like, oh my God, they talk about this. Uh, they already talk. We were meditating over unaliving ourselves as a method of healing to try to basically manifest death of our own. And being criticized when we talked about that, or when we changed the social standards to understand that suicide is not a bad choice, but a societal ailment. That people unalive themselves because of societal ailments, and that society needs to change. Mm-hmm. יכול להיות. למה לפי? So, now, we were combating an environment where nobody understood what's wrong with us. The word neurodivergence did not exist. The word to unalive oneself did not exist. We weren't neurodivergent. We were either bipolar, borderline, even CPTSD and PTSD did not exist. Or people that were just pretending to, or pretending to be, even we were even hearing the word pretending to be crazy. And suddenly we became a generation that set it as a standard to have a noise sensitive room. Where we just had to find excuses for why we avoid people. And not be able to explain why we cannot work, so we wanted to unalive ourselves. Because our parents invested in us so much and so on and so forth. So what was going on with that generation? And so to see a generation that was requiring for noise sensitive rooms, having a word for what we couldn't even express, that was to unalive oneself, uh, so requiring setting a standard for work to actually be meaningful. A notion that people can't just work in a corporation. They need to have their own thing going, their own, and it needs to be accessible. And we have already lost our ability to work because that was some idea that was like so utopic. We were seemed so detached from reality, so spoiled. And all of the things, the ritual abuse that we dealt with, the psychic, we didn't have psychic, who knew what is psychic attack? No. You were either imagining things or, oh my god, the people that were actually raped, and then psychically group raped. No. No. So I think around the Great Resignation, seeing Gen Zers talking about these things and requiring for a different standard, there's been a lot of hope. And I believe a lot of them have been converted by ritual abuse. They didn't want to turn to Christianity when they were raped, as some did, and then they responded by occultistically raping. Um, 555 as I speak. Perhaps knowing this is a crisis of growth because both Mars and Jupiter are in their home sign and the moon next to Lilith. I hope that the people with the Gen Zers that felt isolated, or maybe they felt that we are like detached, um, have maybe a venue to wait a second. These people are not actually detached. They've actually been fighting for all these things we were fighting for. Um, in a world that wasn't providing, let's say, even a sense of meaning and purpose, while granting that when a person climbs up the ladder, or when they will succeed, or they will work hard, and so on and so forth, and seeing that not really yielding, but also not being able, think about it, the Me Too is just a decade years old. There's an entire generation that was in the Uranus square during the Me Too. If the Me Too was when I was going to my Uranus square, if I would actually have a name for things, if there would be actually people that would say soul rape before me, even when I heard spiritual warfare, I was dealing with literally astral rape, and I was like, what is this spiritual warfare people talking about? Like, I'm so secular, what is it even? That's Inquisition. Even when we talk about, by the way, Archangel Angelica is associated with Archangel Michael. I got Rao in Ruhini, 2 meters from Aldebaran, which is, uh, don't be envious. I have a lot of debt, I think, next to Aldebaran. And so, oh my God. In fact, I remember I bought in a business, and that business, astrology business, that business made its selection with Aldebaran. So I ordered in that business, and and I went through. Now it's not the fault of the business owner. They were trying to have Aldebaran for their business because it's a good, by being victorious and virtuous. And then very likely a lot of people were tortured. I was occultistically raped, and there was an attempt to murder me, and I'm like, and not only that, I made a talisman where Venus was with Aldebaran. I'm not joking. And then there was a talisman that was, um, so we were supposed to invoke Archangel Michael, and me knowing nothing. And then I was like, wait a second, this is a spiritual, this is an inquisition. And now the funny thing, I order Angelica oil, and came in delay, and I was like, Angelica, Archangel Angelica, angelic realm, and I'm like, I don't know, but the scent, I missed the scent, and it was, that one was from Belgium. This one, um, does it tell me where it's from? It's supposed to. The company is reliable, I know. Okay. Oh, they manufacture the oil. Is Schloss, but an Israeli company that has a German name and manufactures the oil, because this is for internal consumption. Again, people that were not practicing, I think people practicing the English method, every time anybody says internal consumption, is like, no, it's not an MLM. It's basically not the English because of that case of a person that was prescribed 1 drop and he took 1 spoonful of essential oil, and then they banned internal consumption for essential oils. And so that's not actually the school of aromatherapy that I went to. Now, and by the way, no, you don't mix essential oil with water. I heard that a couple of times. Definitely not for pets, okay? I did not learn aromatherapy on pets, but you do not mix essential oil with water. They're soluble by oil. Now that we got that one through, um, Angelica is also associated with Archangel Michael. So to me, it's very interesting the fact that I missed this oil. It came about and I really needed that oil. The story resonated. It came about just when I was talking, and it is associated westernly with Archangel Michael. This is associated also with Aldebaran. Um, I don't know. Like, I really don't know anymore. Yeah. The previous one came from Brussels. This one is coming from Israel, Rishon LeZion. In Rishon LeZion, there was a lady that was trafficked by technology. And I tried to raise awareness to that case. I think there was a friend that invited me to her wedding, and she was trying to remind me that when I was trying to fight for for ceasing the use of technology to traffic and torture people, or to convert people to basically ritual sacrifice based religions. So um, eventually I would have no Facebook, and I lost contact with that person. And they were living in the I don't remember the name of the neighborhood in Rishon LeZion. So this oil literally comes from Rishon LeZion. And oils usually come, the previous one came from Brussels, and in Brussels there were the Trudeseers. And this one comes from Rishon LeZion. Um, so, yeah. Um, I don't know. I just really wanted the oil. I did several queries, and then eventually I said, no, I have to buy the oil, but then it was missing. And then I bought it, and I bought it with, how is this herb called? Um, and it was a miracle that my card was still, that still had anything in it. Like, uh, and a financial miracle is the world healing from ritual abuse, the ceasing ritual abuse. So, um, where is, it's Ono de Gato. Ono de Gato, I don't know how it's, oh, there it is. Ono de Gato, cat's claw. Um, and this is a tincture, so I'm going to take it with water. Um, 10 drops in half a glass of water. It's actually one of the first times that I count in Hebrew. Normally, I count in my head, not in Hebrew. Um, um, it's one of my mother's tongue. My mother did not. I think I was exposed to Dutch as more like the words that people say in between the words, kind of like my mother was exposed to Yiddish, but but she told me what the words mean because her grandparents were trying to hide the meaning of the language from her, and she began to ask them, and that's how she learned that language. I know German, so if people talk to me in Yiddish, usually I know a little bit what they say, and then I can reply in German. I don't know if I can still reply in German, but when I try to speak Netherlands, I sound German. So I was ashamed to try to speak Netherlands because I would sound German. Um, in fact, our teacher was Frisian, and she said, "But all Israelis, when they try to learn Dutch, they sound German." So mm, there are few things more scary than to wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing that you couldn't have a house in, let's say, the other motherland because of ritual abuse. um, but this oil came not from Belgium but from Rishon LeZion, which sparks the thought that the source of the healing pertains to things that happen there. Maybe there are temples there, maybe there are rituals there, maybe people with all kinds of, let's say, tunnel like places. I want to also address the fact that I think it was before COVID where I had premonition where I saw tunnel and I saw something like a year in tunnel and then something after that, um, and there was attempts to kidnap me. Um, Basically, so I guess that some of them had the plans that I would be of the kidnapped people um, in the October War, and there are many other sequences of these things, and um, and here's the thing: all my life I tried to make euthanasia accessible. If a person is raped, there's no amount of things that are material that can compromise for that. In fact, they cannot even drink water. I was psychically tortured, which is felt on the physical, raped in where my parents stood and did not know what was happening because his use of no touch technologies. And if people dare to speak, then they try to frighten them that they invite this. Because they try to prevent the people from speaking about these things. Um, Living life in prolonged various degrees and forms of torture um, would make this, when I think about, let's say, this oil, it really is, when I come to this oil, it really is with that sense of um, wondering what, Lord, that um, the only way for life to sustain is when those ritual sacrifices and those occultistic rapes are ceased. Um, and only reasonable alternative is extinction of the world, because if person dies, people are like, oh, how did they dare to? And also the genuine issue, like how many of us are supposed to die before these things are stopped? I guess that these videos are also ways where if people have questions, concerns, or whatnot, they can just watch this, and whatever I cannot say, in the sense that if I phrased it wrong or I don't know what, kind of like this is about where it ends. Those are the options that are reasonable, that are sustainable.